they're doing and if they need some help supporting something like that.
Yeah, a lot of school districts are providing meals, like Stillwater's packing, and they are delivering on Monday of every week. And so, funding for that is available. And volunteer work is a little bit more difficult because of all the, issues of not being close to people. So that might not be a possibility, but we certainly can be creative in all of our thoughts of how to help eliminate some of these needs.
I have a quick question. I came on late and I missed what funding you're talking about. So could you just briefly explain, are there additional funds that we're trying to spend? I'm not clear what you're talking about on funding.
Take it away, Kyle.
Where are we?
Oh, I'm not muted. I thought I was. Patty, yesterday we sent out an email from District Governor Paul, myself as foundation team leader, and Margie as grants team leader, that we have funds available for COVID-19 response related activities within our district. We applied for a grant through Rotary's disaster response fund and got that for $25,000. So those are available to our district clubs, and also are utilizing some funds to have a district-wide project to donate to a couple of regional organizations as well. So that's what we've been talking about, is just some ideas in communities from that perspective. Does that answer that?
Yeah, it does. Thanks so much. And I'm just wondering, are clubs individually going to submit ideas, or how is this going to be spent?
Yeah, and certainly, and we'll I'll give a brief answer here, but to everybody, email went out to all the district Rotarians at about 10 o'clock yesterday morning. So if you get emails from Kathy, that's when you should have received it. But yeah, we're asking clubs to submit their applications for that, and we'll divvy up the $25,000 from the Rotary Foundation at that time, or once we kind of know what clubs are requesting.
Thanks, appreciate that.
All applications are due on May 1st, Patty.
Yes. Okay. I think we'll get started here. We've only had one more person show up, so this might be it. I would ask you to please mute yourselves, because with 45 people on here, background noise can be distracting. And Kathy, can you manage that as well, just to make sure, please? Because somebody is typing away. All right. Kathy, are you ready from your end?
Yes, I'm recording and
Perfect.
I'm watching the screen. We do have a couple that have called in that can't mute, but we're keeping an eye on them.
Okay. So perfect. So my name is Kyle Haugen, and welcome to the District 5960 Grants Management Seminar. And thank you for all being here today as we do this online rather than in person. Obviously, our times have changed a little bit over the last month or two, and we look at it a little bit as an opportunity as well. We've always wanted to figure out a way to make trainings like this easier for everyone, and our current environment has made it a necessity. So thank you for being here, and this is the second time we've done this, so I think we can still consider everybody guinea pigs on this, and any feedback afterwards is welcome. As we get started, first want to introduce ourselves, and we're the two that you'll be hearing from the most. As I said, my name's Kyle Hogan. I'm our District Rotary Foundation team leader with the Prior Lake Rotary Club. And Margie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Margie Horning. I'm the District Grants team leader, and I'm from the Stillwater Sunrise Rotary Club.
Thanks, Margie. And Kathy Hewitt is here as well. She's running the kind of running things behind the scenes. So if you have any questions about anything, go ahead and put them in the chat box, or email Kathy directly. She's kind of on both of those from that perspective of things. So that's what we have going there. A couple of housekeeping items. I already mentioned this, but please keep yourself muted during this presentation so it's not distracting to anyone else, and use the chat box for any questions along the way. This is a requirement for the Rotary Foundation in order to sponsor a grant. So you have to attend a grants management seminar. So we'll be having a couple different attendance checks and some polls just to confirm everybody's attendance. So make sure to answer those poll questions as well as possible. And then we'll unmute things at the end for everybody for some general Q&A. But if you have questions along the way, feel free to put those in the chat box and we'll answer them as we go. So the purpose of the grants management seminar is really threefold. Number one, we want to be able to share the requirements on grants so you can put together not only an acceptable grant, but the best possible grant for your community or a community somewhere else in the world. And we want to make that process as easy as possible for you. So we'll go through some of the grant process to broaden your knowledge base there as well. And lastly, as I mentioned a minute ago, the Rotary Foundation requires a club to be qualified to sponsor a grant. So your participation today will help you qualify your club to sponsor a grant in the 2020-21 Rotary year. I want to make a note, this is only for next Rotary year, 2020-21. So you would have to attend again for grants in future years. And this is not the only requirement either. There's a couple other things that we'll talk about in a little while as well. Our agenda, I'll let you read that on the screen, but we're going to try to get through this relatively quickly. The first time we did it, it took about an hour and 10 minutes. So even though we've told you it's going to be an hour and a half, hopefully we'll get you out of here early. If not, it's because we had good questions on your end of things. But really want to use the first part of things to set a baseline for everyone in their understanding of the Rotary Foundation and how grants work, along with a couple updates, and then really getting into what the tips and tricks to create the best grant possible are, along with some Q&A at the end. Before we get too far, just had a question, will there be any handouts or things that can be sent to us? We certainly can send these slides afterwards, but yeah, I would suggest in the meantime, if you want to take notes, go for it. We did Kathy sent out an email to everyone yesterday with a couple of the different documents that we'll review. And so that if you need those documents, again, we can get those to you as well. Before we get into the meat of everything, we do need to do an attendance check. So if you could, in the chat box, please enter your name and club name so that Kathy can check off that you're here. Again, it's one of those requirement related things.
And can I interject? We have 2 call-ins, and if they can tell me what club who they are and what club they're from, I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll just give this a second, and then while everybody's typing that in, I think this is probably close enough, but want to ask our district governor for next year, Ed Merrick from St. Paul Sunrise Rotary. Ed, if you would say a couple words of welcome for everyone.
Thanks, Kyle, and hi, everyone. First off, thanks for attending this afternoon. The information you'll get today is key to unlocking the power of the Rotary Foundation for your club, your community, and the communities that you engage with across the globe. The foundation provides the legs for your projects and allows them to move to completion and enhance people's lives. Like everything else, the rules and procedures for the foundation evolve and change. This allows the foundation to be more responsive and ensure the stewardship of the funds entrusted to it. The Rotary Foundation has received a perfect score by Charity Navigator for some 14 years. This rating is based on how much is spent on administration, how much is spent to raise the money, transparency, governance policies, the Board of Trustees, basically how well managed and accountable it is. The support you get from Margie Horning and the district's grant management team helps to ensure that the foundation retains this rating. Having spent my career in the nonprofit arena, I can tell you that this is a class act. Thanks again for attending this afternoon, and be proud of the good work you're going to be able to accomplish. Kyle?
Thanks, Ed. Thank you. Thank you. Before we talk about grants specifically, we want to set the stage on the importance of the Rotary Foundation for a few minutes. When we think about what we do and all we do as Rotarians, it's often very difficult to summarize that. In fact, I'm sure you've probably been asked the question or asked it yourself, and it's hard to give a succinct answer of what do you do as Rotarians, because we do so many different things. In fact, just think about Rotary's 6 areas of focus. They're very broad. From left to right on your screen, you have peace and conflict prevention and resolution, disease prevention and treatment, basic education and literacy, water sanitation and hygiene, maternal and child health, and economic and community development. It's pretty tough to summarize those, wouldn't you think? And one of the ways I like to summarize all we do as Rotarians is that we create positive peace. And what is positive peace? It's the fulfillment of all needs in a society where sometimes peace can be mistaken as simply the absence of war or violence. This is a much broader definition that focuses on creating a fair, just, and fulfilled society. And when we think about what we do as Rotarians, it really is about creating positive peace. Last year, the New Richmond Club did a grant to build a hand washing station and latrine at a school in a village in Panama. In the developing world, girls stop going to school when they start menstruating because there aren't clean and safe facilities. By providing that latrine, girls can continue to go to school and be more educated. It's definitely creating a more peaceful society in that village. Another example last year was the South St. Paul Invergrove Heights Club. They provided vision screening tools to schools in the community so they could better help identify vision issues for kids, allowing for solutions that will help those kids learn better. Again, creating positive peace for those children and improving society as a whole. There are countless examples of how we create positive peace through our actions as Rotarians, but I think it's important to share that impact. More importantly, the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that will help us maximize that impact, or positive peace, if you want to look at it that way, that we can create in the lives of other people. And giving to the Rotary Foundation is the key to making that happen. Some of you know how the Rotary Foundation works with grants, but here's a brief illustration to make sure everybody has the same baseline. We can contribute to 3 different places. Generally, a 4th one has now come online with the Disaster Response Fund, but at the right is the Endowment Fund. Those donations are held in perpetuity, and the earnings off which the investments gain are put back into the Rotary's World Fund for use in different areas. Obviously, we have Polio Plus as well, which goes to support polio eradication around the world, a hugely important and the #1 priority of Rotarians. In the middle is the annual fund share program, and that's the one that really focuses on the grants impact that we have. And how it works is we give to the annual fund as Rotarians, and then it sits and is invested at the Rotary Foundation for 3 years. While it's invested, they use that investment return to pay the expenses, so we're able to utilize almost 100% of the money when it comes back after 3 years. And how those funds then come into play 3 years from now is half goes to the World Fund, which is controlled by the Rotary Foundation Board of Trustees. That money is used for things like funding the peace centers that are around the world, matching global grants, and making contributions to Polio Plus. Recently, in the month of March, the trustees also took $3 million out of that World Fund and moved it to the Disaster Response Fund to help districts apply for grants related to COVID-19 as well. So those are the things that's used for the World Fund. On the other end, 50% of those donations from 3 years prior come back to our district to be used as district designated funds. We control those funds here in our district. And what those are used for are matching grants, both district grants, which all of you are here today to learn about, and global grants. Also, our global grant scholars who go to get a master's degree in something to help better the world. And we make some contributions to Polio Plus with those district designated funds, or we'll call them DDF for short as well. So that's a very succinct way of looking at the how the Rotary Foundation works. And really, to summarize this, this makes sense. The Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that allows us to maximize the impact we have in our communities and around the world through grants. And the more money we have, the bigger impact we can make. So it's important that we just don't focus on spending our funds, but we need to encourage members to give as well. As grant sponsors, make sure you are promoting how the Rotary Foundation is helping your grant be successful, and encourage your members to give to the Rotary Foundation so we can do more. So think of it this way: you're not just a sponsor of your grant, but you're a champion for giving to the Rotary Foundation as well. Now we're going to let Margie take over and talk about the different types of grants that are available within the Rotary Foundation. Margie?
Thanks, Kyle. We're going to take a look at two different types of foundation grants, the district grant and the global grant. First, the district grant. District grants are a tool for Rotary districts to support short-term humanitarian projects that benefit a community. As far as location goes, they can be anywhere. They can be local or in most international countries. They're smaller dollar amounts and smaller in scope than a global grant. International partners are encouraged but are not required. An example of this being an important factor. Sometimes a village where the grant is taking place is so remote that there is no Rotary Club reasonably close to the project to oversee the project as your partner. Because an international partner is not necessary for district grants, the project can move forward. In one case, a village was provided with a clean water source because it could be completed as a district grant. In our district, we can match dollar for dollar up to $3,000 per club, as you can see on the slide. The maximum match on any one district grant is $12,000. As an example, say the grant is $24,000 and you get 4 clubs to contribute $3,000 each. The district match would be $12,000, and thus you've got your $24,000 budget. I'll show you some other examples of how this works in a few minutes. Progress and final reports, which are very important, are due to the district, not to RI. Now on to global grants. Global grants, as you can imagine, are a lot more detailed, and I can see some of you smiling. I'll briefly touch on some of the major points. We will be covering global grants more in depth at our 2 global grant workshops offered this spring. For a global grant, the location must, and I do mean must, be international. The scope of the project is larger. It has a much greater impact. In our district, minimum club or multiple clubs, their contribution must total $10,000 to get to a minimum grant budget of $35,000. You also need a host club, or sometimes called an international partner, in the country where the grant is taking place. More importantly, the grant concept fits into one of the 6 areas of focus. There's a document called Area of Focus Policy Statements that's a great resource to explore grant ideas. There are many other requirements for global grants: a needs assessment, training plans, measurement, sustainability, to name a few. Now let's go on to some district funding examples. The first example is a single club project. Club takes it on their own and the budget is $10,000. As you know, we will match, we meaning the district, will only match any one club $3,000 for a project. So in this example, the club would have to come up with $7,000 for the $10,000 budget. Now, let's talk about multiple clubs. Say the project is $10,000, but you get 2 clubs involved, each putting in $2,500. The district's maximum match in this case is $2,500 per club, or $5,000. So by involving other clubs, you can request more DDF or district match for your grant. I like partnering because it allows other clubs to lend a hand and frees up club funds to be used for another project. Together, we can often do more. Now for a photo of one of our grants. This is a multiple partner grant, Inclusive Playground. The Lake Elmo Club sponsored this Inclusive Playground project. They involve 2 partner clubs and funds from an outside organization. As you can see from the photos, what's better than club members enjoying each other's company as they work on a project? Now for a solo project. Princeton went solo on an accessible fishing pier. Their work, and this is really exciting, their work with the city really sparked community interest and enthusiasm for future park improvements. One outcome was the city of Princeton applied for and received a DNR grant for $400,000 for those improvements. Now talk about creating positive peace and community impact. Now on to the global grant slide. I like to say there's magic in how the club dollars are matched for a global grant. In this case, club or multiple clubs put in $10,000. The district matches with DDF, district designated funds of 1-to-1, $10,000. The Rotary Foundation matches the clubs 50 cents on the dollar or $5,000. The Rotary Foundation also matches our district DDF dollar to dollar, so that's another $10,000 to get to a minimum project total of $35,000. In our district, this is what needs to be required for a minimum, and I do mean minimum, because RI requires a minimum match of $15,000 from their end, the $5,000 and the $10,000 match. The $10,000, you know, as you talk about multiplication, where do you ever get a $25,000 increase from a $10,000 investment? Now, I'll tell you, that's a pretty darn good return on your dollars. And you know where those funds come from? Rotarians and the generosity of people like you and me who contribute to the Rotary Foundation. Kyle?
Thanks, Margie. And it really does go to show that magic of how our dollars are put to great use by the Rotary Foundation. So let's look at where we're at currently with our funds available. In 2019-20, our current Rotary year, here's a quick summary of our district grant activity. We did 19 district grants. 9 of them were here locally. 10 of them were done internationally. We had just under 92,000 of district designated funds, or DDF, available for use in funding our projects. And that went to match club funds, and the total expenditure of those projects was nearly $300,000. Again, what a great way to provide free money through the Rotary Foundation to help make a bigger difference. In 2021, we will see an increase in DDF available because our giving to the Rotary Foundation 3 years ago increased substantially. So we'll have approximately $118,000 to use as matching funds for club grants. Again, our DDF available is based on donations from 3 years ago. So in 2019-20, we're dealing with donations from the 2016-17 Rotary year. Our giving increased in 17-18, and so we have more money available now for next year. That's why it's important to continue to encourage your members to give to the foundation. We covered this a minute ago, but it's worth reiterating. The maximum match we will provide is up to $3,000 per club and up to $12,000 per grant. So it pays to partner with other grants or with other clubs. Now, we've had an issue over the last few years, and that's where we've had more requests for grant funds than what we've had available as DDF. So we've had a shortfall. If there is a shortfall, we try to be as fair to all concerned as possible in allocating our DDF, and the grants team uses a matrix for this calculation. What goes into that matrix? 4 main criteria, which we'll touch on here. 3 of them are considered positive, and 1, let's call it a negative, but not really. Several factors here. if you have more questions, please reach out to Margie or I offline, and we can go through this more. But the first of those criteria is your club's per capita giving over the past 3 years. And it is weighted more favorably to the most recent year. So having a grant next year, if your club doesn't have a history of giving to the Rotary Foundation, you still have time to make a more positive impact there to boost yourself in the ratings or rankings based on giving from now until June 30th. Number 2, your club participation in other grants in the past 3 years. This isn't sponsoring grants. This is participating in other clubs' grants as a funding partner. We look then the number of club grants that your club has sponsored is kind of let's call it a negative there. Reason being is we want to make sure that clubs that haven't done grants over the last several years aren't penalized there and are looked at more favorably, because the more the merrier. So really when it comes to, let me pause. Number 4 is the grants team evaluation of the projects and how much they feel the impact of the grant will be. So in summary, what's the best way to get the largest amount of match possible? Make sure your club is giving to the Rotary Foundation. Make sure that you're participating in other clubs' projects as a partner, and make sure that it's a significant project that will have a great impact on the lives of others. So now we're going to go to our first poll question, and I'm going to put it up here for a second so you can think about what the answer is. Where can district grants be completed? And you should have a poll on your screen that you can select, click within our district, only in a different country, or anywhere in the world. And we'll leave this up for a minute as we get the answers in, because I can see the answers coming.
This is Ed. I'm not seeing the poll.
I don't know. I know 31 of you, or 33 of you have seen the poll, because we're getting a lot of answers. So Ed, I'm not sure where that is on your screen, because you're one of about 10 people that hasn't answered yet. Okay, we'll wait just another couple seconds here.
There's on the very bottom of the screen where the mute button is, there's a button that says poll, and you need to click on that.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll end the polling here, and I'll share you what the results are as well. The correct answer obviously is anywhere in the world. We can you could do a district grant in your community, or you could do it in a different part of the world. So anywhere in the world, you can do a district grant. Obviously, global grants can only be done internationally. So we will unshare that. And we will talk about the grant qualification requirements. Margie is going to take us through the grant creation process in a minute, but I wanted to first make sure we talk about the requirements to get your club qualified for a grant. Number 1, a club member must attend a grants management seminar. So for all of you here today, way to go. As long as you can stick with us for another half an hour or 45 minutes, you're good. Number 2, club must be in good standing. What does that mean? That means that your club's dues are current to both Rotary International and to our district, so you're not behind on paying dues for the members, and that all grant progress and final reports are up to date and there's nothing outstanding there. Margie mentioned earlier, and she's going to be talking about it a lot, that the reporting side of things is very important. So make sure as you're doing your project that you stay up to date on your reporting, both progress reports along the way and a final report when it's done. Lastly, the Rotary Foundation's Memorandum of Understanding and our district's addendum to that MOU must be signed and submitted. Those were emailed to you yesterday as part of that document package, so you should have those. We'll also send them out again after this meeting, but make sure that you follow the instructions there to get those signed. With that, Margie, why don't you take us through creating a grant?
I'd be happy to. The focus of this seminar is on district grants, but the basics are pertinent for global grants as well. The first thing would be come up with an idea. Projects support the goals and missions of RI and the Rotary Foundation. They also promote Rotary awareness. Good grants engage members, support meaningful service projects, and provide a meaningful impact long after the grant is done. Brainstorm with your club. Ask what they want from the experience. Make this a fun event. You never know where a great idea may come from. Projects, as we talked about, could be local or international in scope. All grants should respect the wishes of the receiving community. Is the project something the community wants and needs? Does it strive to understand and appreciate the culture and the community traditions? Rotarians should be directly involved, not just with fundraising. The project, and this is probably one of the most important ones, the project can't be one that has already been started. It must be a new project. The grant application, if Kyle, can you drag that up? The grant application has a whole list of eligible and ineligible projects. So as you're thinking about an idea, be sure to peruse that. For instance, there's always a lot of questions about construction. We never would build a building, but we can improve it. And we can always do latrines and different kinds of electrical or things like that that would make it new electrical, plumbing, heating, repair of roofs. Those kinds of things can all be used for eligible for district grants. So take a look at it, and if your idea isn't on there and you have questions, always come out and ask, because I'm available and any of the mentors are available to answer your questions. Okay, now building a team. Establish a team of 3, and these folks are what I would call the project champions. The first one would be a lead or a primary contact. That would equate to a project manager or the emotional lead. Hopefully, the next person would be a finance person. That person could be in charge of the budget, fund management, and stewardship of the proper record keeping and keeping the budget in line. Promotion. And this person really is important. They contact everybody, let people know what's happening. They can use print media, social media, use anything to toot your horn. Let people know what you're doing. They document the project. They can provide the narrative, take pictures, report on the project impact in the community. Promotion has, it can be just tons of different things. Make sure everyone on the team knows their roles and is on board with the project. The next would be to request a mentor. We have a whole team of mentors that will assist you with defining your concept's acceptability and putting that idea into the grant application. Your mentor will walk by your side and help you navigate the ins and outs of the grant process. Don't be afraid to ask questions. No question is foolish. Planning and building the plan and setting the budget. As you describe your project, put the description of exactly what you're requesting the grant funds for in the first sentence or paragraph. Be clear. Stick to the definition of the project and how it will benefit the intended beneficiaries. Try to stay away from adding tons of language that is not pertinent to the project. I would say use compelling language. State how the Rotarians will be involved, because every project the Rotarians have to be involved. Some examples would be, we'll help clear the site for the playground. Or, we interviewed the organization to explore their needs and based our grant on that input. Figure out a reasonable timeline. For district grants, we'd like the project to be completed within 12 months of project approval. We understand that doesn't always happen, but that is something to shoot for. Get estimates for the components of your project. Don't guess. The budget should be a reasonable snapshot of what your actual expenses will be. Indicate who will own and maintain the equipment. Operate and secure items purchased with grant funds. As you know, a Rotary club cannot own any equipment. And I would be remiss if I didn't discuss OFAC, O-F-A-C, which stands for Office of Foreign Asset Control. This is a requirement of the U.S. government. They don't want money being diverted to terrorists. If your grant is in a foreign country, we would check the list to see if the country you will be working with is on that list, and it does change regularly. But it doesn't mean that your project can't be done. You just have to complete the OFAC review checklist. This is a perfect opportunity to engage your mentor. They can help you over this hurdle. Submit the proposal. Our new deadline for the next year is June 1st, 2020. You only need, if you're looking at the grant application, it's multiple pages. You only need to complete the first 4 sections of the grant application for the proposal. Email that to your mentor or work with your mentor to make sure that you're getting all the pieces in place. They will work with you if the proposal needs tweaking. And then the mentor will share with the grants team because we have more than one person working on a grant. If there are questions on your proposal, you will have time to get them answered before the presentation on Friday, June 19th. The proposal would be approved by the grants team and the DDF is allocated at that meeting on June 19th. Now, normally we would have an in-person presentation, but we may have to resort to a virtual presentation if the COVID-19 isolation continues. But now that we're all Zoom good participants, I think we can handle that with no problem. The grant team uses the 3 objectives that Kyle mentioned earlier and 1 subjective to allocate the available DDF from the block grant. And you will receive an email shortly after that meeting, so shortly after June 19th, to let you know what your club's award will be. But do not start your project. There are a few more hoops that the district must jump through. Our district's block grant is then completed with a description of all the grant proposals and the amount awarded. It is then sent off to RI for approval. Sometimes RI will have additional questions on one of our proposals or activities. Those questions must be answered before the block grant is approved. So that's another reason clarity in the proposal is very important. Again, do not start your project until you are notified that the district's block grant is approved. It will probably be mid-July before we hear back from RI. But let me tell you, as soon as we get that approval, I will send an email out to give you the green light that you can start your project. Kyle, would you show the finance page? It's never too early to work on your funding. If you need partners, reach out to other clubs and ask for help. Sometimes the club you're asking to partner with will want you to present at one of their meetings. Be ready to tell your story. Now, on the finance page, when you first do your proposal, you may not know who your partners are going to be. So you put down what your club will contribute, and then you just put a line. Kyle, if you can kind of drag your little cursor up and say other clubs to be determined XYZ dollars. And then you ask, what do you want from DDF from the district block grant? So you don't have to know exactly who your partners are going to be for the funding when you submit your proposal. And that's a question we often get. Thank you, Kyle. Now is the time to, now you're ready to go. Okay. Now is the time to complete the rest of the sections on the application. You've been approved, you know what your award is, you've got your funding in place, and use this blank copy of the application that was sent to you to complete the sections. You need signatures of 3 of your project contacts, the president, and a person who's responsible for the final report. You also probably need to get letters from beneficiaries or cooperating organizations that specifically states the responsibilities and how that organization will interact with the Rotarians. Include commitment letters or copies of checks from the additional contributing clubs noting their contributions in your packet. Once you get the okay, probably mid-July, you can start the project. Communicate with your club members, partners, and your mentor on how things are progressing. Document with photos as the project progresses. And maintaining records. I can't stress the importance of that. You need to manage, your club needs to manage the project funds. Getting and keeping receipts would be a major part of that. Part of the good record keeping that anybody in business really works hard to do. Now your project is all completed, things are going along good, or maybe it's not completed, but it's 6 months has passed since approval. You're going to need to submit a grant report. We will try to remind you ahead of time that that report is due. A progress or final report, like I said, is due in 6-month intervals after the approval of the grant, when it is, or within 60 days of its completion, whichever is sooner. Now, as you work on completing, and Kyle, can you go to the page where the questions are? Take a look at this report, because be thinking of how you're going to answer and tell your story. So as you're implementing your project, you're going to want to document it. And these are some of the questions that we're going to ask. What are the expected long-term community impacts of the project? How has the project provided community members with specific skills or knowledge that will allow them to help themselves? How many Rotarians worked on the project? What did they do? And it should be more than fundraising. How many hours did it take to get the job done? It's amazing how many volunteer hours there usually are in these projects. Include photos of the grant. They really can tell a good story. And what's more, we'd love to feature them at future foundation events and communications. Now on the income section, you need to detail everything. So all of your club contributions, you would list them separately, because I want to make sure that every club gets the recognition for the funds that they did contribute to other grants. So detail that area, and then expenditures as well. And it's okay to also attach, say, an Excel spreadsheet with expenditures on it. Receipts obviously are very, very important, and also proof that the club actually paid for the items that are included in the grant. So that about wraps up some, in a nutshell, how to create a grant. Go ahead, Kyle.
You know, I have to unmute myself every now and again. So we're going to do our second poll question now, which, let me switch to it. Poll question number 2. Let's launch the polling. What needs to be done to qualify a club for a district grant? Club member must attend a grants management seminar. Club must be in good standing. Club must submit the MOU and addendum, or all of the above. We'll wait just a little minute longer here. And going back to what Margie said there, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but talking about the receipts and proof that your club paid for them, I know it sounds like a pain to do all that, but if you remember, and Ed mentioned this a minute ago, Charity Navigator rates the Rotary Foundation as the top 1 or 2 charities in the United States. That's why. Because we take such good care of the money and we can show where all the money went. So that's an important part of that. Okay, we are at 42 of our people have responded, so I'm going to end polling. Our share of results, all of the above are obviously things you need to do to qualify for a district grant. Next, especially that memorandum of understanding and the district addendum, please get that taken care of after you've attended this, because it just makes our lives easier, and Kathy doesn't have to chase anybody down for those at that time. So we'll go back to the next slide, which is tools to help achieve success. Margie just went through a lot of information, and I'm sure your head may be spinning a little bit. Here's the best news, though, if that is the case. You're not alone when developing your grant, and we have a lot of tools and resources to help you. As Margie mentioned, when you first bring an idea forward, you'll be assigned a mentor. Our mentors are part of our grants team, and they'll work alongside you during the grant process to help make sure your application is put together correctly and that the full grant process goes smoothly. Second, we have a District International Service Chair, or DISC, that can help if your grant is being done internationally. This can include helping research any special requirements in a country, identifying a club or district on the ground that may be able to assist, providing feedback based on other grants we've done in that country, so on and so forth. We also have our quick reference guide. That's one of the documents that we've sent you in advance of this meeting, and we'll send again afterwards. But that quick reference guide provides a lot of good information about the grant process. I would recommend reviewing this before you get started with the process so you know what to expect along the way. And I mentioned your mentor a minute ago, but it's more than just having a mentor. You have an entire team of mentors, our grants team, that are working together behind the scenes to review grants and make sure they're put together as well as possible. And you may get help from several mentors along the way. There's also plenty of other online resources out there at our district site and rotary.org that you can utilize as well. And I see a question there from Tony, where do we send the memorandum of understanding and the addendum? It's on the memorandum of understanding, I believe, but Kathy put the district office email in there, and that will be in the email tomorrow. Our next poll question, what is the deadline for submission of district grant proposals? And we'll launch the poll now. Go ahead. Is it May 1st, June 1st, or July 1st? All right, we have our 41 people that keep answering have answered, so I'll end the poll here. Oh, 42, that's right, we have one more there. And the correct answer there is June 1st. The deadline for submitting proposals for 2021 district grants, June 1st. That's when that first couple sections needs to be to Margie, so there's time to get the proposal all put together before we present them to everyone else at the grants team and all the other proposals. So we'll stop sharing those results. We'll close out of that one. And Margie, importance of document retention.
Oh yeah, here we go. Why is it important? Well, we are fiduciaries of the funds received, and it is our job to make sure that these dollars are spent appropriately. As people who contribute to the foundation, we certainly don't want our funds going or squandered in a way that is not matching the mission of the Rotary Foundation. So as fiduciaries, we really do a good job of keeping track of things. Now, what are you supposed to save? Receipts, receipts, receipts. So get a jump on it. Invoices, letters from vendors or beneficiaries, the grant application itself. When you've had everybody sign it, make a copy and keep it for yourself. Copies of progress or final reports, to name a few. Reports. Why are they important? Well, they recap what you did, what the cost was, who benefited, impact provided, and proof that the grants were spent appropriately. We also use those reports and the information in them to let people know, like at foundation events, just what impact our grants, all the grants that were written that particular year had on the communities, either local or international. So at any rate, I can't stress the importance of document retention. And do it as you go along. Don't at the end go, oh my gosh, I didn't get that receipt. Okay, principles of successful grants. Well, a needs assessment. Now for a district grant, you don't need a formal needs assessment. But as a project, you must know that it met a need in the community that you're working in. Organized implementation plan. Organization is always the key to making sure things go off appropriately and as intended. Frequent partner communication and teamwork. Letting folks know where we're at, what's happening, is always important in any kind of work that we do. Sustainable. Now, global grants must document sustainability, but any grant should have some sort of sustainability built into it. Now, as far as proper stewardship goes, the Rotary name adds integrity to any project. And boy, it sure would be a black mark against us if we let something slip by that wasn't using that money appropriately to serve a need in our community. And celebrating. Sometimes we don't celebrate our successes. We try to put them under a bushel basket, but we should be celebrating by promoting the impact of the grants. What did we do? What kind of lives did it change? How much fun did we have while we were doing it? Any and all of those ideas would be part of that celebration. So Kyle, you can go on with the next one. Kyle, you're muted.
I know. We'll get this done at some point in time. All right, please enter your name and club into the chat box again so we know that you stayed for the whole event. And then we'll get to wrapping things up here in a minute. And as everybody's doing that, I think we'll just go forward here with our with kind of our wrap up of things. We've talked about three main parts of things today. Obviously, the importance of giving. Hopefully, you understand we can't do all of these projects that we do each and every year without contributions to the Rotary Foundation. And we would ask you, again, along the way while you're doing your project, make sure your club members know that A, you're doing a project, but B, that the Rotary Foundation is part of that project and you're getting funds from the Rotary Foundation, and that's what their money goes to when they donate to the foundation. So the encouragement and being a champion along with club leadership to maximize your giving will help us maximize the impact on that side of things. Getting qualified, we've talked about that. Obviously, the Rotary Foundation requires that you need to be qualified in order to sponsor a grant. And this is the first step in doing that. And Margie, you want to talk about a few other key takeaways there?
Yeah, I would like to add something about the MOUs. Every now and then I'll get a question of what if we don't have our president-elect selected yet for the 2020-2021 year. You've got your president for 2020-2021, but not a president-elect. On the MOUs, there must be 2 different signatures. So for that second signature for the president-elect who you haven't nailed down yet, have another person in the club, sign that so that you have 2 different signatures on the MOUs. So if you have any other questions, be sure to reach out to myself or Kyle.
Okay. And I think the other key takeaways would just be obviously have a good plan, incorporate people within the club, and record keeping is always good. So from there, we're going to open it up for questions. And Kathy, if you want to unmute everybody and if you can either ask any questions in the chat box or online or through the through actually saying. I do have one a second ago. Margie, I'll let you tackle this in a second. Talk more about sustainability. If we're trying to provide relief during this COVID crisis, there's hopefully an endpoint, so I'm not sure what you mean. Do you want to touch on sustainability as a whole and then how it pertains to those projects as well?
Well, sustainability, for any global grant, you must produce sustainability. And that would be in many, many facets as you fill out your global grant application. Now, for district grants, sustainability isn't necessarily a requirement. But if you're doing something, you want to make sure that you're supporting an organization that, say, is going to be there for the future, that they're sustainable, and maybe helping them through this need or whatever, that it isn't exactly sustainability per se, but you are helping that organization to continue on and to provide help for the community. Now, as far as the COVID goes, there's probably not much sustainability in that, because if you think about it, you know, many of the projects are food insecurity, medical supplies, masks, that type of thing. And, you know, that in and of itself is not sustainable, but it is response to a disaster. So I think the COVID is a little bit different. Barbara, does that help you out? Kyle, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that sums it up. Patty Hall asked, on a recent global grant, the sustainability had to be written for 10 years. Is that typical? If we can defer that to the global grant workshop, I think that'd be the best place to do that, because we're going to get more into the needs assessment and suitability parts of things there to answer that in detail. Margie, do you have a short?
I don't know the answer. I've never seen where they've required a 10-year sustainability.
So let's.
Yeah, I was surprised. It was pretty new.
Okay, let's do
But
a little research on that.
We have resources that we can follow up on any and all questions.
Okay.
I have one
Dave,
more question, Kyle. Sorry to interrupt. If you're going to do a global grant, do you also need to attend the global grant seminar, or is one
Yes.
attendant good?
Yes.
you do need to do both. Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
somebody in your club, or personally you have to attend both?
One of the main contacts of the grant. So
Okay, thank you.
in any grant, 3 people have to be listed. 2 of those 3 people have to attend the grants management seminar and the global grant workshop.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Dave Schaefer just asked, is there a limit on a time frame of a district grant? Margie, would you like to take that one?
Well, okay. We would like a district grant to be completed once it's approved within a 12-month period. We understand that sometimes these things do go on and they're out of our control. Like, for instance, the weather freezes too early, or cement is in short supply, or there's an issue with the city or something like that.
Or we
So
have a
the goal
pandemic.
would be to not plan a 2, 3, 4 year, we will go with a 2, but not a 3 or 4 year grant. In the old days, we did approve 4-year grants. We will not do that anymore. It's just too much record keeping, and it seems to lose steam as it goes along.
Okay. Jenny Arnold said, our club has ideas for both a district grant and global grant. Is it feasible to do both? If not, which should be done first? I'll take this one if I can, Margie. It certainly is okay to do both because they are 2 different grant processes. And so if you have the people within your club to provide the support and manpower to be able to do both, that's certainly okay to do that because we do have different tracks. From a district grant perspective, and we're starting this on the global grant perspective, we would ask that there's typically only 1 request per club at a time, though, just because we don't want any monopolization of funds from that perspective. So if you had 2 district grant ideas, you're going to have to prioritize which one for this year and maybe do the next one next year. I know some clubs alternate back and forth between like International Service Committee and Community Service Committee in terms of identifying district grants, but it can only be one of each. But you can certainly do a district grant and global grant. Maria, you have your hand raised for a question.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
I'm sorry about that. My computer power went off, so I had to do it from my phone. I just wanted to confirm the Roseville Rotary Club has gotten together with a couple of other Rotary clubs in the area in North suburban Ramsey County, and we would like to do a district grant for COVID-19 related issues. So since we also have another project in the Dominican Republic that we are trying to push through, so should we have one of those other clubs then submit the district grant?
Sure, you could do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And
question.
just to, Kyle, can I just
Sure.
extrapolate on Maria's comment?
Yes.
You know, we have this $25,000 that's available for clubs to come forward for the COVID-19, response grant. But your club can also gear a district grant to serve a COVID-19 need. And there's some special rules with that, in that it can be started prior to the mid part of July. Rotary International or the Rotary Foundation has allowed us, if it's a COVID-19, we can continue with a district grant for the 2020-2021 year, which would typically be reviewed or authorized in mid-July. We can have it started as like right now. So that's something, if your club wants to do a district grant, for COVID-19, in addition to applying for the other response grant, you can do that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, question here. Would it be acceptable to submit a COVID-19 grant and a district grant request? Yes, because
Yes, absolutely.
those are two different things. The disaster response grants are happening right now, and yes, we can do one of those and then still do something for next year on a district grant side of things. Also, a question on the MOUs that was sent to me regarding the memorandum of understanding. Number one, you can email the copy to Kathy or one of us as well. In fact, I'll just switch. Those are our email addresses. You can email that as well, so it doesn't need to be the original. And Kathy and Margie, you can maybe answer this question, but say if you don't agree with this. I don't see any problem if it's an electronic DocuSign signature or anything like that. Do you?
We've already,
I don't.
Yeah, we've already received that.
Okay,
Yep.
Perfect. So,
Just as long as we get it with some sort of signature on it.
Yep. So that's a easy way to do with that as well. And if you need any help with that, we can help you with that. So, any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah, Mary.
The district grant you referred to, Margie, that could be accelerated for a
COVID-19.
Yep. Will that go against the $118,000 that we're going to have available for grants for 2021?
That would be correct.
Okay. So it would make sense to me that we would expend the $25,000 we have available first before anything like that were approved, wouldn't it?
Well, that's true, but then any club can, ask for funds from the COVID-19, the special 25,000, and they can also put in a district grant to serve another COVID-19 need. So it depends upon the club. Don't worry, we won't have any problem spending that 25,000.
Yeah, I was just I guess I was just a little concerned about accelerating a separate district grant and making sure it's vetted the same way that other district grants are, and that it doesn't take away from grants that haven't even been totally written and proposed yet, but might be just as worthy.
Right, but the question would be, they're deciding this is a grant they want to do. You know, I'm just thinking out loud here. The club is asking for XYZ and matching DDF. They may not get that because that will not be distributed until our June 19th meeting. But if they want to start and, you know, go ahead, and if the funding shortfall from the DDF is there, they know either to, you know, make their grant a little bit smaller or else to put in funds from the club.
Okay, okay.
So,
Thank you for clearing
you
that
know,
up.
new charted waters, we'll have to, you know, vet them as they go by. But they definitely will have to meet all the standards that any other district grant would meet.
We have
Thank
one
you.
other question here for the disaster response grant submissions that are due May 1st. Is this for the 2019-20 Rotary year? Yes, it is. But because, and Betty Jo, the meeting, the 1920 MOU attendance and everything, that is not the case because it is actually a grant sponsored by our district. And our district is qualified with the Rotary Foundation. So any club is eligible there. And we just had another question from Jenny Arnold. Can you confirm each club has 2,500 available for COVID-19? Not exactly.
Maybe.
We have 25, yeah, we'll see. We have $25,000 of money from the Rotary Foundation. We have asked clubs to put together requests of between $500 and $2,500. We don't know how many clubs are going to submit requests or what amounts they're going to submit for. So that's why we have a May 1st deadline, because at that point in time, we'll look at all of the requests and be able to divvy up those funds as well as possible. And we just don't know how it's going to look, because if 50 clubs request $500 each, well, that's 25,000 right there. So we're just not totally sure how that will play out, but it's possible that each club could have, if 10 clubs ask for 2,500, we're in good shape there. Mary, you have your hand raised.
And just as another aside for that, each club for that 25,000 has to contribute a minimum of $100 to their particular request. So they have so every club has a little skin in the game on that as well.
I hesitate a little bit to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And there are other clubs that maybe are in the same situation as we are, but we've managed as a club to give away quite a bit of money. We gave to the River Valley Y, Southern Valley Alliance for Battered Women, our CAP agency, which is our countywide social service system, to our ROC, which is reaching our community's kids that deal with food insecurity in our school district. And we're giving, so we've already been able, we happen to be fortunate as a club, and I think most of you know that we have some funds. And so we've made a decision not to request any of that $25,000. Yes, there are more needs in our community that could be met, but we feel real strongly that we had the funds available to already give. So other clubs that maybe aren't as fortunate as ours to have had the fundraising capabilities we've had, to give them a crack at it. And I think that's really important for clubs to really not worry about how much money do you have. This isn't a grant you have to match, really. $100 is nothing. You know, somehow the word has to get out to clubs that don't often have this opportunity to get free money, that they should go for it. And Prior Lake club's getting out of the way. And there's maybe other clubs that'll do the same thing. We would rather have a club that isn't used to having these kinds of funds available make hay with it. And I just wanted to encourage other clubs that might be in a similar situation as ours to do the same.
Very good point, Mary. One thing that we did do this year, Paul, our district governor, wanted to do a Shark Tank for district grants this year. And so we have 3 clubs that have not had a district grant in the last 3 years come forward with ideas, but there were 25 clubs that were invited, but only 3 said that they wanted to compete. And this is like free money. I mean, you know, it's like, what's better than, you know, way to get a district grant off the ground than that. But so we are, as a grants team, I think, trying to encourage clubs who haven't participated in the past that, you know, hey, come on, you can do it. A small grant is pretty doable, and we can ask for partners, and you know, so we can go on from there.
Would that be a good thing for assistant governors to be asked to personally contact those clubs they deal with on a regular basis and walk them through the process and just do a little hand holding
Sure.
to make it happen?
Sure. And anytime you can encourage somebody to participate in the greater good, you know, that's definitely creating positive peace, Mary.
And Prior Lake will use any leftover money. We'll happily put a grant together if there's any left over.
All right. Any other questions? Perfect. Then I will